For more on the elections in Mali and Zimbabwe and the possibilities for real change for either country, I'm joined by Dr. J. Peter Pham. He's the director of the Africa Center at the Atlantic Council. Dr. Pham, thank you for joining us. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Let's start with Mali. Some say that these elections came too soon after last year's coup. And with these contested results that are starting to come out, is this the beginning of more trouble for Mali?
Well, it really depends on how the results are announced, what is announced, and how the international community as well as local actors respond to it. Certainly, Mali has been brought back from a near-death experience, one could say. Last year, the country had a military coup. Two-thirds of national territory was taken over by insurgent rebels aligned with al-Qaeda's regional franchise. Fortunately, a timely military intervention led by the former colonial power France, with support from Mali's neighbors, drove back the insurgents. They're not totally defeated, but they're on the run, and created a climate in which an election could be held. Were there imperfections? There seem to be some. On the other hand, voter turnout is the highest Mali's ever seen, so that says something as well. So now it's important that the results be delivered in a credible, transparent manner, and that all parties respect those results. But in order for them to respect those results, they have to be done credibly. Otherwise, we sow the seeds for problems to come in the future.
Well, then, and do you see the international community stepping in if there are problems with those results?
I think the international community needs the elections to work in Mali, both to cover the French withdrawal of its military forces, to allow the UN to exercise its mandate in peacekeeping, and to permit countries like the United States, which have suspended assistance to Mali because of the coup, to restore assistance. Because Mali, ultimately, what it needs is economic and political development in order to bring back stability. So the international community needs these elections to work. So I call them the good enough elections. But we have to be careful that good enough gets us past today and tomorrow, but it's not enough to build a long-term prospect.
Well, and let's turn to Zimbabwe now. We saw just a few moments ago a story about these two brothers traveling so many miles across the continent to vote. What do you make about the turnout there?
Well, it seems from all reports that there's been a large turnout. It's been more peaceful, more enthusiasm than we've seen in a long time in that country. So that's a positive sign. On the other hand, we have to recall that the 2008 elections, the problems weren't with the voting. It was how people responded afterwards. When one candidate led in the first round, the other candidate unleashed a campaign of violence that ultimately scuttled the second round, and the international community stepped in and encouraged the parties to join together in a loveless unity government that has brought the country to this election. But I don't think that process can be allowed to be repeated. And if it is repeated, I think there are grave dangers, not only to Zimbabwe itself, but to the stability and peace of the region.
We have about 30 seconds left. Do you think Mugabe stays?
Well, I find it very hard to imagine him doing anything other than what he's done for the last 33 years, which is govern Zimbabwe and in recent years led it down to a path from which it's going to be very, very difficult for anyone to bring it back.
All right, Dr. Pham, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us here on the show.